Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Too Deep. I'm your host, Grace Helbig. Get ready for a very fun and dance-filled episode with Britt Stewart. You might know her from the high school musical movies, perhaps. You might know her from the most recent season of Dancing with the Stars as a first-time pro, or maybe you've seen her on tour with Katy Perry. We talk about all of it. She is the sweetest, most lovely lady, and I got a real brand new perspective and insight into the world of dance. As we all know, I'm an undiscovered professional dancer, but this might have fully inspired me to take the plunge. Please enjoy this lovely episode with Britt Stewart.
Not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Britt, so excited you're here. Thank you for making time. I am absolutely not a dancer in any way, shape, or form, so I have a billion questions about the world of dance. First and foremost, I want to hear your start into this world. How did you... It seems like a very specific world that you find your body in. So I'm curious how you got started.
Yeah, well, I've been dancing since I was 3. So it's okay that you don't come from dance or you don't know anything about dance because I got you, girl.
Thank you.
Dance is my life. So I know. Yeah, I'm not going to say I know everything about it because we're always and consistently learning. But yeah, I started when I was 3. And the way that I got into it was through my parents. Neither of them are dancers, but they were looking for an activity for me to, get started in. And my mom actually really wanted me to be a figure skater. And so she tried to put me in a couple lessons, and I was 3 at the time, so I was very young.
Yeah.
But I just immediately would freeze and then just start yelling on the ice. And so my mom was like, "This is embarrassing. We cannot do this anymore. My dreams of you being a figure skater are now over."
Done. Thank you. At 3 years old, it's good to know that you know what you don't want to do.
Who knew I was such a decisive toddler? But from there, I think actually it was just, I always had this natural thing with music. And I would always sort of move my body. And it was just something that I was really connected to. And so my parents decided to put me in dance from there. And it just stuck. It was instant. I always wanted to go to dance class and I really loved it. And so I actually started my mom got a job transfer. And so we were in Seattle when I started dancing. Okay. And then we moved back to Colorado when I was 5. And then we found a local dance studio there so I could continue my training. And then that studio is what opened up to the world of competitive dance.
Well, okay. So Colorado competitive dance. How do you describe that scene? Because now we have, all these shows, we have Dance Moms and all of these things that kind of give light to all of these pockets of dance culture happening. How do you describe that scene?
Yeah. So I think for everybody to kind of relate to it, I would say Dance Moms is a good representation of, well, let me just say this, is a representation of the dance world, but with an ounce of the drama. Dance moms definitely exist, but my experience was not that. But it was the same as, dance was life. I would go to my studio after school. I would train. I would have rehearsals on the weekends. And then I would participate in competitions. And then there's also conventions where you take class all day and then you compete at night, which those were my favorite. And to me, the most beneficial for a young dancer because you get exposed to other dance educators outside of your everyday teachers. And so that was my dance training. And I also went to performing arts school, 6th through 12th grade. Cool. And so that was a whole other side of it, artsy sort of side of dance outside of my competition studio as well.
I went to public high school, so I'm so curious what a performing arts school is like. I imagine it in this beautiful, creative, weirdo pockets. People are doing all sorts of movements and making all sorts of things. What was that like for you?
Yes, it's kind of like that. I would dance. I think for like an hour and a half every day. And then I would have my, the rest of my classes, like science, math, all of those classes that you
all
need.
the things that I guess are necessary, but whatever.
And what's so funny is I actually loved school. I love learning about all those things. And I just happened to be a dancer and really connect to that.
Yeah.
But, my school had different majors, art, theater, of course, dance, vocal, creative writing. So it was anything having to do with the arts, and you were a kid that wanted to pursue it, you went there. And
Cool.
Specifically, my performing arts school was also a public school. So it was, even though you had to audition, it was open to the community, which was really cool.
Very cool.
And I think the best thing that I could describe about my education growing up was, I remember in science class, I had to do a physics project. And I think I like measured this was a long, long time ago, but I was like mapping out the rotation and basically the dynamics of a turn in dance and how different styles of shoes, like, made it different and all that stuff. So
the friction of it. That's
exactly.
That's so fun. Okay. So you went to this performing arts school, and then what happens from there?
From there, I decided to go to college. So I went to Loyola Marymount. I did not graduate. I only was there for a semester and a half because a dance job came up that I could not say no to. Basically, I started professional dancing when I was 15. And so when I was in high school, I was doing the High School Musical movies.
Right.
The High School Musical was my first big dance job.
Wow.
So,
okay. Wait, so take me through that. How did you get those when you're 15 when that happens?
Yeah, I was 15, and, big moments in my life and in my career, I consider them very like serendipitous moments in my lifetime. I was actually at one of those dance competitions, and it was a national. So I was in New York, and I got approached by a dance mom that was there. And little did I know, she was also a dance educator and a choreographer. And she happened to be one of the choreographers on this upcoming Disney Channel show called High School Musical. And she came up to me and she was like, Britt, she's like, this might sound crazy, but we're looking for one more female dancer, and you are what we are looking for. She was like,
this is like what people dream a Hollywood moment is.
Yeah. It's so Hollywood. And she was like, what's crazy is you would have to fly straight from New York to Utah. She's like, I understand your parents work. You can stay with me and my family. Her 2 daughters are also dancers, and we're dancing in the movie. And she was like, Kenny Ortega is directing it. And at the time, naive, 15, I was like, okay, sure. And so basically from New York, I flew to Utah, changed all my summer plans, flew to Utah, did like a little private audition for Kenny Ortega. And then they cast me as one of the dancers in High School Musical.
Wow.
And High School Musical was not supposed to be the phenomenon that it was.
Right. That's what I'm wondering, is that you're going into this gig, you're making adult decisions as a teenager to uproot your life and to go live with someone that you're trusting. And then the phenomenon happens afterwards. That must be such a whirlwind.
Oh, it was. I think the budget was like little to nothing. We were in production and rehearsals for like 6 weeks. It was so short. And then it literally just exploded. And, I wasn't very cool in school. I was
me too. You're safe here. It's a safe space.
Okay, great. I was an introvert, and I was, and then I got home from like filming this movie, and it aired, and everyone was like, hey. And I was like, wait a second, you guys didn't like me before this.
Yeah,
What's
I've been here the whole time.
I know.
Wow.
But yeah, it just exploded. And then High School Musical 2 was during my senior year of high school. And so then, I was fortunate to go to a performing arts school. So they understood and allowed me to do my second semester online. so I could go and film the second movie. But then the reason I left college was for High School Musical 3. And basically from there, my parents, I was trying to decide if I wanted to go back to school or if I wanted to continue dancing. And I had some other opportunities come up from High School Musical. And my parents were the ones that said, you know what, Britt, leave school. Your dance career is, obviously God is taking you in this direction and the door is wide open. If you want to go back to school, school will always be there.
Yeah.
Which I was like, are you guys sure? Are you guys sure?
You have very cool parents. That's very cool.
They're the best. They're honestly the most supportive and the absolute best. And I left school and started my dance career.
That's incredible. I mean, yeah, that is so cool. And also to commit to starting a dance career, it's wild, right? It's like you're committing to this uncertain path, but it's your passion. And so you hope that it works out. Okay, so what happens after you make the decision? Your school is done, you're chasing your dream. What happens from there?
Well, from there, I just, I get into the LA flow of a professional dancer, which means I have an agent.
What does that mean? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I got an agent after High School Musical 3. The choreographers there were like, I can't believe you don't have an agent. Let me hook you up with my agent.
Okay.
So that's what happened. That's how I got my agent. And from there, I started getting calls for auditions. And thankfully, from my upbringing and exposure that I had in dance, I knew some of choreographers that already lived in LA. Okay. So I started taking their classes so they would know that I had moved out to LA, that I was an LA
available.
Girl now.
Yes.
And then basically you just kind of, I think for the first few years I was in LA, I just went to every audition, went to as many classes as I could to make those connections and to network and to get my name out there as a professional dancer. And then that's when I started booking jobs. And, it's interesting in the dance world, when you make relationships and connections with choreographers, they usually like to hire the same people from job to job. And so I just got lucky enough to get into the right choreography circles.
Yeah, because that's my curiosity is that, and I assume that the dance community is a community. Like it must be big and also very small at the same time once you start to get to know people. And so how did you prepare for dance auditions? Like what's your advice currently to people that might go on auditions? Like quick tips that you've learned to get yourself in the mode for them?
My biggest advice is always stay true to your authentic self. Because I feel like I see a lot of young girls try to be the image of what they think the LA dancer is. And it's as dancers, even more specifically than like actors and commercial actors, we're typecasted by the way that we look. So if I'm in a lineup of, all girls that have my same skin tone, similar hair, as long as I myself, I might look kind of similar to them, but there's only one me, there's only one Britt. And so to really be true in that, that's what I would say. And then also too, it's an audition, it's a dance audition and there's going to be hundreds of people there. And so really finding it just goes back to finding what makes you, finding what makes you special and showcasing it and not being shy about that.
Well, it's interesting because dance and learning choreography, you're mimicking, like you're learning the same movements as someone. And so I'm sure it's very easy to forget to be yourself while also learning these exact moves all the time. And it must be something that, it seems so like common sense, but reminding yourself to find yourself in all of this.
It's really interesting. It's actually hard to be a dancer, I think, because of that reason. When you are auditioning, like let's say when I was auditioning for Katy Perry, you're in a group of, on that tour, there was 10 dancers. So there were 6 guys and 4 girls. And so I'm just going to use the 4 girls as an example. We all want to dance the same and be clean and make sure that we look as a cohesive group. but still have your own individuality, which is a really hard balance to find as a professional, especially as a young professional dancer.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a wild world to me, and I have nothing but respect for everyone that is in it. Yeah, that is something I hadn't really thought about before until just now. Very cool. Now, speaking of like Katy Perry and going on tour, you've been on tour with Florence and the Machine, Rihanna, Demi Lovato, Nick Jonas, Selena Gomez, Janet Jackson, just a few casual names. What's that experience like? Because I'm sure it's, you see tour docs of, music performances and stuff, but to be a dancer on tour, you're going 200% every night, every show. What's that experience like?
Yeah, well, a lot of those artists that you named, I had a lot of just like one-off shows with those people, but specifically with Katy, I was her dancer for 3 years. So I was on tour with her for her whole Prismatic album. And it's really interesting. It's like 3 years out of my life that I could just write a book about the entire 3 years.
I'm sure. I mean, that I'm so fascinated by the behind the scenes, because everyone sees, the polished things that are on stage. They don't know what happened right before or right after, getting into the gig, getting out of the gig. I'm so curious.
I mean, first of all, just living out of a suitcase for 3 years. I ended up getting rid of my LA apartment for, I think it was like a year and a half of that, because I was never home. And also gave me an opportunity to save money, because I was never there. And it's LA rent.
Yes.
And it's a very glamorous life, but it's also not at the same time. You really just like uprooted. I had to go out of my way to really stay connected to my friend group back home in LA and my family, and being on different time zones. It's also exhausting, traveling on a tour bus. You would sleep maybe for a couple hours, wake up in the middle of the night, get into your hotel room, fall back asleep, wake up, go to the venue. And then it just cycles and it cycles and it cycles. And so that's like the hard part of it. But still, I still pinch myself and I'm like, I got to see the world while also doing something that I love, which is just so magnificent.
Were there any notable or standout like technical difficulties that happened? Because I feel like one of dancers' best qualities are turning mistakes into part of a performance. So I'm always curious about like what might have been a hardship that no one actually noticed.
Well, there's one. I mean, it was definitely noticed. It was, and this was like one of the times, because I think you're right. Dancers, we have this really rare ability to just pull things off out of nowhere. But this is one of those times where there was no way I was pulling this off. And it was a Christmas show. I think we were in London. And it was a Christmas show. And of course, we were all dressed like elves. So I had, like a Santa hat with this little like bell, very cute. Yeah. And this specific show, there was an artist that performed before us, and there was like stuff all over the stage, and there wasn't time. Anyway, there's this moment in the performance where I like do this traveling movement going across the stage. Of course, it's like right in front of Katy. I literally slip and my feet go underneath me, and you can just see me like slide across the front of the stage, and my elf hat is like, woo, with like the ball. I mean, and there was no way that I could even fix it. And it was right in front of everybody. Everybody was like, girl, are you okay?
That's wonderful. But I also feel like Katy Perry has innately such a humor to her that things like that are okay in those situations. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I have to hear about the Dancing with the Stars journey, because this is so cool. We'll be right back with more Not Too Deep.
Not Too Deep with Grace Helbig.
Hello, listeners. Grace Helbig here, wanting to say two things. A big thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're a regular listener, if this is your first time listening, welcome and thank you. And second thing, if you are enjoying yourself here in this not too deep world we've built and you'd like to leave us a review, that would be so wonderful. If you can go to the iTunes store, the App Store, and leave us a lovely little review, comment. How are you feeling? Good, bad, otherwise? Maybe just good or otherwise would be appreciated. Other than that, enjoy the podcast. And you just must have such an ability in your brain to accept the uncertainty of like going into a venue you've never been before, a city you've never been before. It's crazy to me.
What's funny is I feel like I almost have more certainty there than I did like with COVID and quarantine and that uncertainty. It's like when that hit, it's like I'd never experienced it before, but actually my entire life and my career is actually uncertain. But
okay, well, that's all kind of appropriate because in this year of weird uncertainty, you've also been, this was your first year as a pro on Dancing with the Stars. How cool. Congratulations. That's so cool.
Thank
but
you.
How long have you been working with the show in general?
Yes. So I was on the show for 5 seasons as a pro.
Okay.
Or sorry, on troupe. So 5 seasons on troupe. And I started in 2016 and then I took a year off, and it was because the show made some internal changes and they decided to get rid of troupe. And so my job got taken away and I didn't get promoted to what I had always wanted. And then, it was very strange. And this year that's been, 2020 was so interesting. And then one of the biggest moments in my career happened, which I feel incredibly blessed that it happened, especially the timing of everything. It was very like serendipitous moment for me.
It also must be, for you saying that in troupe, I guess you're in the troupe kind of with the hope that maybe you get moved up to pro, but again, there's no certainty and you're just kind of hoping you make it through a season and they like you and whatever happens. So how did it happen? What was the call like?
Yeah. Actually the year prior, they had done a massive audition looking for new pros. And they actually, of course, they invited the troupe members to that. And that audition, I had to prepare 2 different styles of choreography to perform, and then an on-camera interview. And then what was really cool is we had to teach a non-dancer like a little short phrase. And
interesting.
Of course, that was filmed as well. And I thought that was really fun and really cool. And that audition actually went really well. And me being on troupe for 5 seasons and having already a relationship with everybody over at Dancing with the Stars.
And know how the show works, how the camera stuff happens, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it kind of looks like I might have a chance. And then unfortunately it didn't happen, which is okay. And I honestly feel like I wasn't meant to be there as a pro until this season. Everything, the year leading up to it, the timing, who my partner was, I think it was all completely meant to be at the right time. But for this season before, I remember I had gotten an initial call from one of our executive producers, just checking in and just seeing how my year has been and, what's been happening. I was like, of course, trying to be super cool, like, this is what I'm up to.
Like, I'm available if you need me.
Get off the phone, call my mom. And I was like, guess who just called me? And then it wasn't for I think it was almost 2 months later. I know. I got a text from Dina, a different executive producer. And she was like, are you available to get on a Zoom call this evening? And I was like, yes, of course. And I think I had to wait like 5 hours.
I don't like that stuff. That's the kind of body anxiety I can't handle.
Oh, girl, I had to go take a walk. I could not be in my house. I was just freaking out. And then I hopped on the Zoom call and they asked me to be a pro. And I just got really emotional. I feel like I had like worked very hard to get it, and it came at a moment that was unexpected. And it was the perfect moment.
So cool. And then your first time as a pro, you're with Johnny Weir, who must have been so cool to find out that you're teamed up with an athlete that has a certain sense of muscle memory, also perhaps a little bit triggering from your childhood dreams of being an ice skater.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. What's the initial meeting like when you guys are paired together?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was shocked. I was like, "Are you sure you guys want to give me Johnny Weir for my first season? Like, this is pretty massive."
Yeah.
And honestly, we instantly connected. It was a very much like, wow, we get each other right away, and we really, ever since our first meeting, we really created this authentic bond throughout the season. And yes, I was so excited to get a figure skater. But what's interesting is I thought some things were going to translate a little bit more smoothly than they actually did.
Sure.
I knew his upper body was amazing. And I really tried to accentuate that in my choreography, but his feet struggled a little bit. And, I kind of felt bad a little bit because people really had like the highest expectations for him. And I felt like almost too high of expectations for him.
Sure. Yeah, that's tough. But also, I mean, it's incredible. You guys had incredible chemistry, and something that must be very nerve-wracking to hope that you can facilitate that kind of chemistry so quickly, because the show moves so fast. And what's the like rehearsal schedule like? How intense is that in between actual production days?
We did not have a day off.
Wow. Wild. And also, this is all, again, happening in the middle of a pandemic happening. So not only are you, trying to create beautiful dances, you're also trying to compartmentalize what's happening in the world at the same time. Wild.
I know. It was a really unique experience. And I thought the show did amazing. We got so blessed that everyone stayed healthy throughout the whole project.
Yeah.
But it was very strict. We got tested every day. We, Johnny and I were in a bubble. So we couldn't see anyone more or less than 8 feet away.
Wow.
So everything was very, very strict. But it was an interesting balance of, dealing with what was happening in the world and the election, the vote, like that
just
happened during the season.
Things. Yeah.
Just, no big deal. Just things happening in the world.
Jeez.
But, I think it was actually, what was interesting was the shock after the season. Going to work every day, staying busy, then back to quarantine. It was a little bit of an adjustment to get used to again.
That must be very jarring. And also, I mean, it must be cool to have had the show to work on, because this year I feel like, or I assume that the dance community kind of struggles, because that is something that truly takes place in person with other people. And I do see that you do a lot of like virtual classes, and you do a lot of like virtual kind of things. It's very cool to see the dance world adapt to technology and social media and all of that. Have you gotten into, first of all, like the TikTok dances of it all? Is that in your wheelhouse?
You know what? I have not. I'll have a few. I'll have a few fans. Like, I have this one fan that really wants me to do a lot of these different like challenges.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it yet. And I feel like I should just do one to make her day. Because I feel bad that I haven't done any of them, but I haven't done it. I mean, I feel like I talk about my mom a lot, but she's my best friend.
Yeah.
And literally, I think it was yesterday, she called me. She was like, "Britt, I think you need a TikTok." I'm like,
see, your mom has had the right decisions from day one, it sounds like, for you. I think you need to do this dance thing. I think you should get a TikTok. I mean, I would trust her instincts about this.
I know. And I usually do. And sometimes I like procrastinate because it's mom.
Yeah.
But I I might dive into the world a bit. We'll see.
Well, I'm curious too what the teaching dance online is like for you. It must be interesting.
It's really interesting. And I think you said something really awesome. I do believe that dance specifically out of a lot of the arts has been able to pivot during this time. And teaching on Zoom was definitely an adjustment. It was hard because I'm also such an interactive teacher. When I educate and when I teach, I really like to be up there and I'm like counting. And so it felt very, cold at first when I was first doing it, but I have found my flow. I've found how to connect in a different way. And even though I'm afar, I can still really make an impact. So, so I've been doing that. And I've also been doing online tutorials too, which is fun.
Cool.
That's different because I don't get to interact with anybody. And I'm just kind of teaching a class to a camera, but I'm grateful that I've been able to still do that.
Totally. I also had a curiosity about in the before times when you're able to teach people in real life in classes, how do you have any systems in place for politely letting someone know that maybe dance isn't what they should be pursuing? Because I feel like my younger self probably had been told this because I was also in a dance class younger, but terrible, truly terrible. So I'm always curious for someone like you that has all this experience, how do you politely let someone know that perhaps their passions are better suited somewhere else?
Can I tell you, I don't think I've ever been in that position, or at least I've never had to say that to someone.
That's nice. That's good. I'm throwing it out there as something to think about in case the opportunity comes up. But it sounds like, because dance specifically, you have to know inherently, I think, that you have a passion or drive, a physicality that's appropriate for it to really go for it. So I'm always curious about the people that aren't as self-aware in that regard.
I mean, thank you for giving me the heads up, because maybe I'm going to have just a little statement prepared just in case I come across.
I also feel like with the advent of these TikTok challenges, everyone thinks that they're the best dancer in the world too. And so I'm curious to see what the byproduct of that ends up being if people really truly start to seek out these passions as dreams in some way. But we'll see when we get there, I guess.
I mean, we will see, because it's also interesting because now in the dance industry, people look at followers and they look at that.
See, that's what I'm curious about too, because it is such a social media based industry as well. And you have all these dance studios and I've, worked with and talked to Matt Stefanino before and people like that facilitate this, the social media-ness of it all. So I'm always curious, is that actually part of the community now?
It is, but there's still, I think I go back to creating those networks. And so certain choreographers still hire for talent versus popularity.
Gotcha.
And so even though it is something in our world that's really infiltrated how you get jobs, talent still exists. All of that still is very prevalent, but it's part of our job now too. So
it's fascinating, but I do think that dance is the great equalizer in terms of your talent will show through. Your subscriber count isn't going to mask the fact that you can't do this 8 count or whatever this thing is.
100%.
Okay, we're going to take one last break. Speaking of social media, when we get back, I have some questions from Instagram for you. So we'll be right back with more Not Too Deep.
Not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Britt, before we get into these Instagram questions, I'm going to ask you the 2 questions I ask every single guest that is on the podcast. And the first is, who, alive or dead, would you most like to throw cold spaghetti at?
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's a very...
cold spaghetti.
Cold spaghetti. And I like to let people know that this is, your answer can change on a daily basis. It's just who in this moment comes to mind. And it can also be based on whatever your intention is. If you want to throw it in a celebratory way, that's optional. A negative way, that's also optional.
I mean, I would love to be like on the street and like throw some cold spaghetti at Hitler. Just like,
Yes, that is a very popular answer here. Yeah.
is it really?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. So you're in good company.
Okay, good. And then I would probably throw some at my friend Casey because I think he would find it funny. Like I would make it a joke.
That sounds great.
I
love it.
Yeah.
The other question I ask every single guest is to tell us your worst pants shitting story or like a bathroom emergency situation, but you can only use 3 words or 3 small phrases to describe said situation. For example, mine is college jogging front lawn.
Okay. Traveling. Taco time.
No.
Leggings.
Oh, God. That's a triple threat.
Bad. I mean, I have a gluten allergy, so, I have a sensitive stomach.
That's also what I wanted to ask you about. I thought it was so cool. I read your whole post about your journey through discovering your allergy. And as a dancer, you have to be so in tune with your body. I imagine that's so fascinating to know that you've gone through that. For people that don't know, what's transpired for you?
Yeah, basically, I have a condition called physical hives, and every time my body temperature changes, I break out into hives. And
hey, same. I have the same thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So,
but I wish it was a gluten thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just through trial and error, I've been able to manage it with eliminating gluten in my diet, and now I don't have to take any antihistamines or anything like that, and it's really, as a whole, it changed my health journey and my wellness journey. And yes, as a dancer, I was already in tune with my body, but I think that even increased it.
Very cool. And something, that I think people probably wouldn't know about you unless you said it, obviously. And I think that's really helpful for other people. Okay, let's get into these Instagram questions. First one, what do you miss most about Johnny?
Gosh, everything. Like, honestly, I'm sitting here and I just got a message from him saying, I miss you. But I miss, we would laugh every day together. And I think you don't realize how positive that is for your soul and for your mental health. And not that I don't laugh without him, but he has also such a contagious and like big laugh, and I just miss that.
Yeah, and it's also such a truly unique and special experience that you guys had together that I'm sure, obviously you're going to miss each other because you two are the only two that know what you went through.
Yeah.
Someone to know, what was your favorite part of your first season as a Dancing with the Stars pro?
Oh, you guys are asking. I feel like they're asking questions on like everything. All of it. I think being in that position, being a Dancing with the Stars pro, is so unique and it's so special. And I don't know if there's anything else quite like it in life. You really get to cultivate this journey and this experience for someone that is being very vulnerable every single week. And I think my favorite part was that I helped cultivate this opportunity for America to see a different side of Johnny. I think that, a lot of times people see him as a figure skater and with the sparkling blazers and the hair and all the things that make him fabulous, but he was really able to talk about his story and what has made him him.
I know I think people forget too that you're creating like the narrative for both of you through this whole journey and just hoping that it gets expressed as you intend it to. Someone wants to know, who is a dream star that you would love to be paired with?
I mean, Justin Timberlake, can a girl really dream? I don't know. I think it's so funny. Like, there's so many male celebrities that I think that would just be absolutely amazing. But as long as I have someone that's hardworking and passionate about being there and committed about being there and has like a little musicality and some athleticism,
Yeah.
I think I'm good to go.
Oh, that's very, very sweet. And also, yeah, how quickly do you find out who you're paired with? Or you guys literally find out in the room together when someone walks in?
Yeah, we find out together. And
Okay.
this situation, Johnny and I actually started like a week later than everybody else. So we only had a week to prepare for the show. So
Oh,
I was,
geez.
people were already in rehearsals and I was like, okay, let's get started.
Okay. Someone wants to know, well, a lot of people had asked questions. Was there pressure that came with being the first Black female pro on Dancing with the Stars?
Absolutely. First of all, it was an honor.
Yeah.
And it's still weird of like when people say, "Oh, girl, you made history." And I'm like, "Whoa, like that's
On top of
insane."
this, a wild year. Yeah. Just another small,
Yeah.
little, incredibly important thing that's happened for you.
Yeah, but I definitely put pressure on myself and I definitely, I felt like there was a lot of responsibility because, I was this new representation and there's already not a lot of representation of people that look like me in the ballroom world. So I felt pressure and I felt like I really wanted to do a good job, not only for Johnny, but for, all the little Black
Yeah.
girls watching and saying, oh my gosh, I think maybe this is something that I would want to do one day.
Absolutely. And I think it seems like you and Johnny could connect over that because he's also a person that has created a lot of visibility in
Hmm.
a world that didn't have it before. And so I
Hmm.
think that's truly beautiful. A lot of people are asking, will we get to see you and Johnny's freestyle?
Oh, so it's interesting because we got eliminated at semifinals. A lot of people have been asking if we could do our final dance still.
Mm,
And we are still finding a time to where we can meet up and plan it. So yes, it is still happening, maybe a little bit later than what we expected, but with COVID numbers here and our schedules building up, we're just trying to find a safe time to where we
that
can see
makes
each other.
makes sense. People are asking, what was Tyra's energy like on this season?
I know it was really having Tyra as our new host was definitely controversial. Um,
Yeah.
Tom Bergeron was, he's been there since season one. And so I think people were really upset about him not being there. But from behind the scenes, Tyra was lovely. She
Mm.
was very nice and she reached out to everyone, pre-season, but also throughout the season. And, just saying, hey, I know I'm here, new here. Just wanted to introduce myself and tell you how excited I am to be here. So she has good energy.
That's great. Okay, someone wants to know, what do you do? And maybe this is something that you have experience with in being called to dance. What do you do when you feel called to do something new or leave a place that felt certain to you?
Oh, that's interesting. What do I do if I'm feeling,
Well,
I
because I
feel
feel
like,
like, yeah, your whole story sounds like you have to be okay with uncertainty and letting it kind of take you and letting these like serendipitous moments sort of manifest in your life. So yeah, I'm curious, when you feel the call, how do you respond?
it's so interesting. I feel like we sometimes have such a hard time listening to our instinct and listening to our gut and
Hmm.
really feeling, called to when we need to switch things up or when we need to go do something. And it's really hard to take that first step. So for me, first of all, I feel like I like to come up with little affirmations for myself. Like in December, it was choose love, not fear. Or
Mm,
like during quarantine, it was being comfortable with the uncomfortable and just repeating those affirmations to myself and really almost like programming them into my DNA
yeah,
really help. And what also helps me too is just taking sometimes things day by day and like little steps to getting to where I know I want to be instead of sometimes when we just make a huge shift and then we're like, I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps.
No, I think that's really great because it's, again, the things that seem like common sense, but when you remind yourself, that's when you realize you've forgotten it, and it's the most important. Before we wrap up completely, Britt, we love to give our guests a little token of our appreciation for them making time, and we give personalized little virtual fortune cookies that I think Melissa has emailed to you. And if you could read that fortune, that would be lovely.
Yeah. Long live #Team Brijo. I love that.
Yay! In case anyone forgot. And hopefully we get to see the final dance when it's safe and okay to do that. Britt, where can people find you online and everything that you're up to if they don't already know?
Absolutely. They can follow me on Instagram at Britt Benae, BrittBenae, or on Twitter at Britt B. Stewart. I'm definitely more active on Instagram, though.
Love it. Thank you so much for making time. This was so fun. I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but we got to wrap up. Go check her out, guys, and everything that she's up to. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Not Too Deep. Goodbye.
Too deep, too deep, too deep, not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Not Too Deep is a production of Grace Helbig Incorporated, producer Melissa D. Montz, edited by Shireen Lani Yunus, post-production sound by Chris Henry, and an extra special thanks to Flula for the theme music.